Yeah, good afternoon, everybody.
Hello there.
I'm Sean.
I'm Mike.
And we're going to be talking today about the Tesla Powerwall. I'll give it just a couple more minutes just for people to start filtering in. There's probably going to be a couple people that will be a little bit late. But just a quick introduction. My name is Sean. I've been here for about 11 years now. Started off doing installations, service engineering, and now I am the Tesla expert in regards to the Powerwall. I deal with primarily customers that already have a solar system at their house, and what I do from there is I retrofit in the Tesla Powerwall for them.
So I'm Mike. I started at SUNation at the very beginning of 2019 as a site evaluator, and now I'm the senior PV designer. So I work on a lot of the permitting process, designing systems, photovoltaic systems, solar systems, but also systems that are designed solar and battery together. I work on a lot of that stuff. So between Sean and I, chances are if you're getting a battery from SUNation, one of us will have our hands on that project. Yeah.
Okay. And behind the scenes, I have Phil, who's going to be working the keyboard, basically, kind of vetting all the questions. He'll be answering you guys directly. But yeah, keep an eye out for kind of repeat questions. Phil will definitely be responding to those individually. So, and a little bit about SUNation. We've been in business now since I think 2003. Started off as a pretty small company, and we've obviously grown since. We're based out of Ronkonkoma, and now we are pretty much kind of running the show here with Tesla Powerwall installations on Long Island, and we also offer obviously PV and residential and commercial. So, all right.
Yeah. So I think do we have some people on here?
We got 11 on.
All right. So yeah, I think we're going to get started by talking a little bit about the Powerwall, what it is, what it does for you, what some of its capabilities are. So the Powerwall from Tesla, which is behind us here, this is actually a dummy version of it. There's no electronics inside this, it's just the case. But that's kind of an idea of what it looks like. It's a battery backup solution for your house. So I don't know about our viewers, I'm sure many of you are experiencing or know someone who's experiencing an outage right now as a result of the hurricane that just blew through here. I have no power in my house and probably won't until Saturday. So, and that's because I don't have a Powerwall. A Powerwall is a solution to provide your house with backup power in the event of an outage, as an alternative to a generator. It can also be used in conjunction with a generator, and we could talk a little bit about that as well. Sean, you want to talk a little bit about the specifics?
Okay. So right now, the way we install these Powerwalls is we can either do a whole home backup scenario where we're backing up your entire house. Hold on, we got volume is a bit low. Is there a way to adjust that? Can everyone hear us well? We're just gonna pause real quick and see if we can get the volume sorted out a bit. Good, okay.
Okay, we'll try to speak up a little bit if that helps.
Okay, so yeah, we set these batteries up either for a whole home configuration, or we set it up for a partial backup. Essentially what that means to you, we could either back up every single circuit in your panel, or we dedicate a separate sub-panel that houses your emergency circuits such as your refrigerator, hot water heater, some lighting circuits, basically the essentials to get you through any sort of outage event, especially like the one we just had. In terms of equipment, usually for a whole home, you're usually looking at about 2 Powerwalls. And in terms of the essential loads, that's usually done with 1 Powerwall.
Yeah, what Sean's touching on here is the scalability of the Powerwall system. Basically, the process of getting a Powerwall involves giving us a call. We schedule a site evaluation, so someone will come to your house from our team, our engineering team, and whether you're getting just a battery or a battery and solar, we're going to gather data that's going to help us make a recommendation for an appropriately sized system for both what your house currently has, but also what your goals are. So like Sean said, if your goal is to back up everything in your house, that's possible for most people. Usually it requires 2 or more Powerwalls to do that. But also if you want a scaled down system that only handles the bare essentials, that's possible as well. And again, the best way to determine the size and scale of the system that works for you is to get one of us over there to your home to gather that data necessary in order to size the system appropriately.
Correct.
And another thing that we only just touched on is that the integration with solar. So Sean, you want to talk a little bit about how batteries work with solar?
Yeah, so as some of you probably know, I don't know, there might even be some new faces in here who don't have solar yet. But if you are a solar customer, you've probably experienced the phenomenon where your power goes out from the utility, and even though you have solar panels on your house, we can't back your house up with just the solar. So what this Powerwall system allows you to do is actually keep your solar running. So not only is your solar operating, but it's charging that battery. So as you're using power in your house, that battery is staying topped off during the day. And essentially what happens is at night when you start losing sunlight, you're going to start operating your house entirely off the battery's capacity. The following day, when the sun starts to come out again, you're going to start recharging and you're going to repeat that cycle. Really what it comes down to is kind of managing the load, especially in that nighttime period, because that's really when you really want to make sure that battery is has enough juice to get you through the entire day and the entire night, really. So.
Yeah, and one of the great advantages of the Tesla system is the app integration. So if you have any kind of smartphone or smart device, you can sign into the Tesla app, and it'll actually tell you when you've switched over to battery power. It may not even be obvious to you, especially if you're on a whole home backup scenario. If the power goes out, the automatic relay or transfer switch, the Tesla backup gateway is what it's called, basically just switches the power directly over to the battery for a pretty seamless transition. So it may not even be obvious to you you're on battery power. So that's why the Tesla app will actually alert you. It'll send a notification to you that you're now on battery power, and it allows you to monitor how much power you're using, as well as how much you have left and how much charging is happening as well in real time.
Yeah, and just to add on that with the Tesla app, if any of you folks here have a Tesla vehicle, all that is on the same app, so you don't have to get like a whole bunch of different apps, one for the battery, one for solar, one for the car and all that. It's all in one place. It's all pretty seamless. Additionally, they are very good, Tesla, with over-the-air updates. They update their equipment regularly, so as time goes on, obviously technology is going to change. But I think in terms of a long-term investment, Tesla's going to stay on top of their equipment and make sure it functions for you, for years to come. So.
Yeah, that's a really great point about the value of a Tesla product. Just like their cars, as Sean said, they keep getting better as over-the-air updates roll out, and that happens regularly.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want to just talk about just some basic specs?
Yeah. So we went over the outage, like the reason to have a battery backup system for protecting you in the event of an outage. There's another reason that some people may get a battery. It's not as relevant to us here, and that's based on time of use metering. So you may see some ads from other providers across the country that say a Tesla battery may help you save money on your electric bill or something like that. And that has to do with time of use metering. PSEG here on Long Island charges you one rate, not depending on what time of day it is. In California and some other states, they have peak and off-peak rates, which allow you with the battery to store energy during that peak time, and then during that off-peak time where the rates are lower, and then discharge it during those peak hours when you would normally be paying more for electricity. That's not currently the scenario here in Long Island. So it's not currently a benefit, but that is possibly something that could happen with policy changes in the future. So that is another benefit that could potentially come into effect with the Powerwall.
Yeah, correct. Right now, we are configuring for a backup generation system only. So really, your peace of mind, that's your return on your investment. You're buying, essentially an insurance policy. You're going to have power, during a storm. And then, maybe in the future there's going to be some monetary benefit to it, depending on what the utility does. So let's talk about, I guess, some of the specs here.
Yeah, so we can just go through. We'll start with dimensions. So the Powerwall is 45.3 inches high. It's 29.7 inches wide, and it's just over 6 inches deep. So for those of you who are trying to think about where you might want to put one in your house, those are the dimensions. They can be mounted, we've gotten a few questions about this, they can be mounted at the floor level against the wall. You can stack them up to 3 deep. So that's a nice way of saving space. And obviously as you come out, 6 inches, 12 inches for 2, 18 inches for 3. That's a nice space saving technique. However, you can only stack them at floor level. We can hang them on the wall as well. The Tesla Powerwall is, I think it's 274 pounds.
276.
276.
Yeah, you need a pretty sturdy wall to mount these.
Yeah, and we do it all the time. It's possible, but they cannot be stacked when they're hung on the wall. They only mount individually. And there are some clearances and considerations about equipment location where a Powerwall is approved by building codes and by Tesla to be installed. And again, another really good reason to have someone from our site evaluation team to come over and take a look at the areas that we might be thinking about putting a Powerwall and then determining the best location for you.
Correct. Yeah. Just another kind of selling point here with the Powerwall, versus other companies. There are other options out there, but SUNation has found that for a full package for this energy storage system, Tesla has everything kind of built in. You have the battery cells towards the bottom here. There's an intercooler that manages the temperature of the batteries themselves. And then there's also inside a battery management system that does all like the control functions of the battery and tells it when to charge, when to discharge, and how to do all that. When you start looking at the competition for these, you have a battery system, and then you have another box which is the battery management system, and then you have another box which is your controls and stuff like that, and then you have your disconnect switches. So it gets pretty messy. This is a nice clean package. You have this and one other item, which is the gateway, which Mike explained is the transfer switch. That typically gets installed by the utility meter or next to the electric panel.
Yeah, and to build on Sean's point there, Tesla just recently released the Gateway 2, which is an upgraded version of the Gateway. It now sports a white automotive paint finish like the Powerwall, so it matches, looks a little bit nicer than your generic electrical panel. And with that update also came the ability to combine either an essential loads panel or a non-essential loads panel inside there, which to simplify it a little bit, just basically means that it's one less potential panel that you might have to have on your wall from the Gateway 1, which we were using up until recently. So that's a nice improvement as well. So again, just simplifying the system, making it less obtrusive, and it makes it a little easier for us to install as well.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Got a good question in from Adam Beecher here. He asks, are there any rebates for existing installations? Also, are these in stock, and how long does it typically take to complete an installation? It's a bit of a loaded question, so I figured it'd be best to answer live.
Sure.
All right, so there are rebates available for these. Your first rebate is going to be from NYSERDA, which is the New York State Energy Research Development Authority. What they're offering is $250 per kilowatt of storage capacity up to 25 kW. So essentially what that means to you is with one battery, you're looking at a rebate of $3,375. With two batteries, you're looking at a rebate of $6,250. On top of that, you are also eligible for the federal tax credit, which is 26% right now. If you are a new solar customer and you don't have anything on your roof, you would also be eligible for the state tax credit. So you have a potential of three savings there. So what was the second part of that question?
So the duration of the install, like how long it takes to do the installation?
Installation typically takes 1 day, usually a full 8 hours. Potentially it could go to a second day, but that second day is usually just the final commissioning. Sometimes,
and that's just for the Powerwall only?
Correct, yeah, that's Powerwall only.
Often we'll do solar and Powerwall on the same day. We'll have one crew working on solar, one crew working on the Powerwall. These numbers also depend a little bit on the scale of the system, so
correct.
That's sort of an average, yeah.
And do you have any in stock?
And in terms of in stock, they are in stock. There is a bit of a waiting period, and it's not really for material, it's really for the permits. This process takes about the same as a solar permit, so at most about 3 months. Could be a little bit less depending on what town you're in and how the town operates. And obviously we still have a little bit of COVID stuff to deal with. So not everything's back to 100%. So that's really what your timeline would be. So.
Yeah, and another important thing to mention is that the popularity with this recent storm, as well as with the pandemic, the popularity of energy storage has gone up considerably. So keep in mind, if you contact us for a battery or for solar or both, we have a tremendous volume of interest, which is great. But we may not be able to get back to you immediately, but just hang in there. We will get back to you. We are, keeping track of everybody, and we'll get you in the pipeline as soon as we can.
Okay.
Got another good question from John Feen here. Says, can we mount this outside?
Yeah, so the Powerwall is approved to be mounted outside. We generally recommend an interior mounting location, and that's because here in New York, particularly on Long Island, we can have some pretty harsh winters. You'll see a lot of Powerwall advertising material showing it outside, and that's often shot in Southern California where it's pretty temperate, doesn't swing too high or low. Here in the Northeast, we tend to have pretty cold winters. So in the colder climates, the performance of the battery can be affected. It's not necessarily going to damage it or anything like that, but if you did have an outage on a really cold day, your capacity might be a little bit compromised.
Yeah, and the reason for that, again, is this battery has that built-in intercooler. Mm-hmm. So that intercooler is running under its own power just to moderate the temperature, whether it's too hot or too cold. So that's where some of that energy loss happens, just to keep the equipment cool. So
yeah, that's a good question. Yeah.
And another one?
So let's see here. Rosemary Heyman just got in, how much would installation of 2 units cost?
Okay. Let me see, I got that somewhere here.
Yeah, so Sean has some base prices here, and just a note for all pricing, because we customize and scale the system to your needs, there will be some variability in the price depending on whether you're going whole home versus a backup load center, whether you're integrating with solar or not. And if you're integrating with solar, how much solar. So there's a lot of variables at play. So these are base prices, but if you contact us and we do a site evaluation, then we can give you an accurate proposal with a solid estimate. So I'll turn it over to Sean.
So if you're looking at a battery, basically one battery starts, and this is after your rebates, after your federal tax credit, and assuming you're doing some sort of financing, you're looking at about $9,000 out the door. And with 2 batteries, you're looking at around $13,700 as your price. And again, that's with all the rebates put in there and everything. So, it is cost competitive with a standalone generator, like a gas-fed generator, especially when you start adding in fuel cost, maintenance, a service contract. Those are the things that add up when you start talking about a gas-fed generator. So with this, it's you're putting it on your house. Your fuel source is on your roof, so there's really no fuel for it. Maintenance too. It's you pretty much just setting it up and just leaving it. So
yeah,
it's certainly a big difference compared to gas.
Absolutely. And because it's a web integrated device, we can actually log into the system remotely. So if you had any kind of question or issue about the performance of your system, we can actually log in and look at it and perform some diagnostics without even having to come to your house. So that's another benefit of the system. And also to echo on Sean's point about generators, another great advantage is that the Tesla Powerwall is silent. So I don't know about any of our viewers, but I personally couldn't sleep very well last night with all the generators running in my neighborhood. So that's a huge advantage in my book.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with a couple of the frequently asked questions, and then we'll get back to kind of the Q&A, with you folks logged in. So I'm going to start with this one. Can you permanently be off the grid by using a Powerwall with a solar roof combo? So legally in New York, you can't really cut the cord per se with PSEG. Technically, it's possible, but savings-wise, you're really not saving anything, especially if your PV system is sized to cover your home's existing usage. You're not really talking too much of a benefit by doing that. You want to
Yeah, sure.
do the next one? Right down.
All right, so the question here is, my electricity went down last night for a few hours and it was horrible. This would have saved me how and for how long? So the Powerwall's primary function is to serve as a backup battery. So essentially, like I mentioned earlier, the Tesla Gateway is going to detect that grid outage and immediately switch you over to battery power. Depending on whether you went with a whole home backup scenario or a essential loads panel scenario, you're either going to maintain full use of everything in your house or limited by what we choose to be those essential loads. But yeah, you're basically going to have power for the duration that the battery can last. And like Sean mentioned earlier, the solar is there to recharge the battery as you go. So ideally you want the battery system to be sized enough to get you through the night so that you can get some more solar the next day. We found that appropriately sized systems can work almost indefinitely without any intervention, just using solar as the recharging source.
Correct. Yeah, it all comes down to management. If the app that you're going to get with the Tesla system, just be cognizant of what you're using, and it'll actually tell you kind of like I call it a miles to empty, but it's really minutes to empty on the battery. Mm-hmm. And you'll see real time if you put on say the dryer that's electric, it's going to automatically detect it, and it's going to estimate how much time you have left if you were to keep that load running. Mm-hmm. So all that stuff, again, that Tesla app, that's going to be your friend there, especially during an outage.
Yeah, so you're going to want to do a little bit of load management in those scenarios. Maybe you're going to run your pool filter during the day as opposed to at night. When you choose to charge your electric vehicle, that sort of thing. If you do a little bit of load management, you can prolong the duration of the battery considerably. Yeah.
All right, the next question, can we get a battery if we already have solar? Absolutely. Tesla's equipment, it's pretty handy. Again, this is compared to some of the other competitors here. You can pretty much connect this with anything, whether it be an old school string inverter, AC modules, if you have a solar edge system, the list goes on. As long as it's, some sort of solar source, we can pretty much tie it in. The next one is, I think we already answered this. Are there any rebates through the Fed or state for a Tesla Powerwall? Again, if you want a battery and do not have PV, then the only rebate you're going to get is the federal tax credit. Right now, the rebate program is only for customers who are tying this battery into a solar system. If you have solar though, and you want to retrofit a battery, then you're going to be able to take advantage of the NYSERDA rebate, which again was either $3,375 for one battery or $6,250 for two batteries or anything after that. And you'll also get the federal tax credit. And then last, if you're a new solar customer, you're going to be getting all three. You're going to get NYSERDA, federal, and potentially the state tax credit.
All right. Okay, so we had a question here that comes up pretty often. I'm not sure it's actually working. How can I be sure that it's working right? And in a way, that's a testament to how seamless the system is. It switches on during the outage and you may not even notice. The way to be sure that it's working is to monitor that Tesla app. So again, it should send you a notification. As long as you're hooked up to your home's Wi-Fi system, you should be able to get that notification. And yeah, the Tesla app should be able to keep you aware of what's going on with it.
Yeah, and this week especially, I know there were a couple customers out there who, you probably lost electric and you lost your cable provider. So you're probably wondering, how are you able to see your app if there's no internet? The Tesla Gateway has its own IP address. So even if there's no internet, you're actually able to go on your phone's browser. And this would be explained to you more in depth, obviously at install, but you would actually be able to type in the IP address of that gateway, and you would actually see, everything that's happening with the gateway to ensure that it's working, even during a power outage with no access to cable or internet or anything like that.
Yeah.
And that way you can still see your percentage. The only caveat to that would be you have to stay kind of within range of the gateway. It's not a very big range, so if you want to check periodically on your system's performance, you would just have to go near the gateway to do that. So, what is the warranty? And if so, what does it cover? So Tesla is offering up a 10-year warranty from the initial installation date. They're covering basically 70% energy retention for that system. So basically what that equates to is at the end of 10 years, you'll still have 9,500 watts of stored capacity for that battery. A new battery, just so you're aware, has 13,500 watts of usable energy. So, all right.
Okay.
We're up to 7.
I'll skip that one. I'll let you do that one.
Okay.
Can my entire house be powered during an outage with a Powerwall? So again, sizing the system appropriately will allow for that. There are some large loads that you may choose not to include, and it's possible for us to just break those out as well. So instead of creating an essential loads panel, we create a non-essential loads panel within the gateway, and we'll take something that's a really heavy draw off of the backed up portion of the system.
Not only that, again, if you are a solar customer, you know well that if the power goes out, even though you have solar, you don't have power, and the only way to do that again is with the Powerwall. and you're really kind of maximizing the potential of your solar system. So it's not just, you know, sitting on your roof waiting for the power to turn back on.
That's right. Yeah, that's a safety feature that's built into all modern solar systems. Rapid shutdown. It's there. It's designed to protect grid utility workers from backfeeding any electricity into the grid. So solar just automatically shuts off when it detects an outage. But one of the great things about the Powerwall is it creates what's called a standalone system, and it's the only scenario that allows you to use solar during an outage. A generator backup system does not replace the grid, and you know, solar still needs to go down if you're running a generator. So again, just another advantage of a battery storage system over a traditional generator system.
Okay. Next question is, how exactly does the battery backup work? So again, there's a couple components here. You have your transfer switch, which we're calling the Tesla gateway. Unfortunately, I don't have one here to show you, but you know, again, it's this, but a little bit miniature. Inside of that, it has all the components that detect an outage from the grid. And basically what happens is that gets installed between your utility meter and your main electric panel. When the outage occurs, the gateway is going to isolate your home from the utility. And basically that allows the battery, your solar, and all your home's loads to maintain normal function, basically, without backfeeding the utility. Again, as Mike said, we're trying to keep the line safe. You know, we don't want to be backfeeding power into that grid. What's going to happen is you're going to get a notification on your app indicating that there was an outage. This whole thing happens within milliseconds, so realistically you probably won't even notice that you even had a power outage. Once the power is restored, there's about a 5 to 10 minute kind of sync up between the utility and the gateway, and what it's trying to do is just to make sure there's a steady connection, and once it finds that, it reconnects, it notifies you again that your system's back up and running, and then you just go from there. You're back to normal, basically. So
That's right. Yeah.
so really, there's really no work for you to do, and again, the only thing that you're going to be interfacing with is that Tesla app.
Okay, can a Tesla Powerwall lower my electric bill? So I touched on that earlier. In some parts of the country, that is a possibility, places that have time of use metering. So for those of you who weren't watching earlier, I'll just explain it again really quickly. So time of use metering is peak and off-peak rates that you would pay to your utility provider based on the time of day. So if you're installing a Tesla battery in a place that has time of use metering, you can save money by capturing energy during those off-peak hours when the rates are lower, and discharging that energy during those peak times, so you're not buying as much of that high rate peak electricity from the grid. So in that sense, it can lower your electric bill. Currently on Long Island, PSEG, our main utility provider here, does not use time of use metering. We use one rate for everything. So there's no advantage currently. It's always possible, however, that there could be a policy change with PSEG or with New York State that switches us over to a time of use type of metering, in which case the Powerwall will already be equipped to take advantage of that. It's just a matter of changing some settings in the software, which we're able to do. And that brings up an interesting point. Phil here works in our service department. If you ever have any questions or concerns about your Powerwall or your solar system, we have a separate, fully operating service department that 365 days a year is there to address your needs with solar or with your battery system.
Yep. Yeah. So, all right. Next one. Just what are the space requirements? So at minimum, we're looking for about 4 feet of wall space, and this is for inside. We're looking also for full ceiling height. I want to be somewhere that I can get as close to an 8-foot ceiling in there. And then for an exterior location, I actually need a little bit more room. I'm looking at close to 6 feet. And the reason being is New York State requires us to install our batteries with at least 3 feet of clearance from any point of egress on your house, whether that's a window or a doorway, or even like a garage door, anywhere that someone could, escape the house if there was ever an event. They want to keep those areas clear. So.
I think you already talked about price.
We talked about cost. At the end of this, I'll just refresh anyone, for anyone who's not here yet. I'll end with the cost again. Okay. This question we answered already.
Yeah, we'll go to the next one. So are there different models of the Tesla Powerwall, and which ones does SUNation offer? So currently, the only model that's available is the one that you're looking at here, the Tesla Powerwall 2. It's the second iteration of the Powerwall. The original Powerwall, it was similar to this. It had lower capacity. It didn't last quite as long. This one has a lot of improvements over the original, and for now, this is the Powerwall that's available. What is variable here is how we scale them. So this is like a building block, and we can stack several of them together in a system to scale it to your needs. Okay.
How do I find out how many Tesla Powerwalls do I need for my house? So basically the best way to do that is just to schedule a site evaluation with us. We'll be able to tell you based off of what kind of loads you have at your house. If you have, again, air conditioning is a big one. If you have any like reptiles or something like that, something that's important to you that you want covered, we would certainly need to take a look into that and kind of see, how the system needs to be built, basically. Every house is different, and everyone's needs are different. So I come to some houses and, some people, have a big house but all they want is the refrigerator backed up. That's fine. Some people want the entire house backed up. So again, it all depends on, what do you need and, how much capacity do we need to cover whatever loads that you're trying to do. So.
Yeah, and that brings up another point to consider, and that's the integration with solar as well. One thing that sets SUNation apart is that we do our best to customize both the battery portion of your system as well as the solar portion of your system to your goals and your needs. So we have to scale things accordingly. And there's actually a limit to the input that the Powerwall can take from solar. So we may need to customize how much solar the battery gets. You can still have more solar, but some of it will bypass the battery and things like that. So again, there's a lot of variables at play here, but like Sean said, if you schedule a site evaluation, our engineers can get on designing that system for you. Our next question here is, how much does the Powerwall weigh? And what are the dimensions? We talked about this already earlier in the video, but we'll just recap that again. The weight is 276 pounds. This is not a portable device. It is going to be permanently installed in your home. And as I mentioned earlier, it could be stacked on the floor up to 3 out from the wall with a stacking kit, or it could be hung from the wall, one Powerwall at a time. And as I mentioned earlier, there are some clearances that we need to consider away from other equipment and other obstructions in the area that we're mounting it in. So again, we can pick the best location in your home or suggest some sort of modification that'll make an area suitable. Sean, why don't we talk for a moment about some of the requirements that are required by local building codes and the National Electric Code for what is needed in your home for a Powerwall.
Okay, so New York State. Well, let me preface this with energy storage is pretty new to the electrical code. So for the first couple of months of us doing this, it was a lot of learning on both sides, both us, the installer, and all the towns. They're trying to figure out, what is a battery system? What does it entail? Since then, they've kind of figured out a game plan on how they want to kind of manage these systems. So one of the big requirements that they are asking for is smoke detection. So let's just say you have a house and you want to put a battery in your basement. What I need as a prerequisite for the battery is I need a smoke detector that's wired, or I can alternatively use something like a Nest wireless smoke detector. And basically what needs to happen is if the smoke detector that's in the basement goes off, I need every single smoke detector throughout the house to go off. So that's like a really big requirement, and some houses have it, some houses don't. SUNation is willing to offer that service of installing these. A lot of the times if you have like a security company like Sloman's, they might actually install your smoke detectors for you. In which case I would recommend that you contact your alarm company and have them retrofit an additional smoke detector into your system. The other big requirement, again, if you're going anywhere in the house, you need to have a 2-hour fire rated wall between the battery and the surrounding area. So if you're in that basement, a lot of houses on Long Island, you have a cement wall that counts as a fire rating, but on the ceiling I would need 5/8 sheetrock protruding about 4 feet out. So it's not a huge factor, but it certainly comes into play when we talk about design. If we go into a garage, I basically need the same requirements. I need the smoke detection, I need sheetrock. Most garages on Long Island should already have a fire-rated sheetrock, especially if it's kind of a new construction. And last, if you're putting a Powerwall towards the end of your garage where your car is pulling in, I would need some sort of barrier, and that could either be a curb stop or like a bollard or something like that. Again, those are all kind of the little requirements that we're going to be looking for when we're doing the site evaluation, and that all comes down to things that could potentially increase the cost or change the pricing. So there's a couple of things that we need to be aware of.
Yeah, and along with those issues that Sean raised, whenever we do a site evaluation, we're on the lookout for structural data for solar. So if we are doing a full site evaluation, you can anticipate us going in your attic, or trying to find the structure of your roof some other way from the inside of your house. We're also going to be looking at the electrical system, that main service panel, any sub panels that you might have. All of our techs are prepared to work under COVID conditions. They will be wearing a mask and gloves. They clean and sanitize their hands and their equipment between every job. We've been doing this for a couple of months now, and we're pretty comfortable with it. When we identify anything that needs to be done to bring your house either up to code or into compliance, we either can provide those services or through a subcontractor, one of our trusted electricians or carpenters can get your home to where it needs to be able to accommodate either solar and or a battery, all through that one contract. And one really nice benefit to the way that the tax incentives and the way that they're structured, any work that needs to be done in order to install your solar system can be bundled into that amount. So it's a good time if you're getting solar, to get a new roof. If your roof is starting to get on in years, things like that, because you'll be able to save a considerable amount on that work as well.
Yeah, and same thing with the smoke detectors. It's it's kind of a pain when you think about it, but at the end of the day, you're going to get like a nice state-of-the-art smoke detection system. So honestly, it's really not a bad thing, especially since you could roll it into that federal tax credit.
Yeah, and so along with the peace of mind you're getting from the battery backup, you're getting peace of mind from being a little bit safer, having those modern smoke detectors in your house. Yeah.
Next question is, can the Powerwalls be installed externally or only on the inside of the house? We touched upon that briefly. There's some requirements that I need for the outside. I need to be 3 feet away from any door or window, point of egress. And again, if you're on the inside, smoke detectors, sheetrock. If you're in a garage, I need the impact protection. All those things, again, come into play. and those would be determined based on the results of a site evaluation. So either or, again, an interior is preferred just because of the temperature outside that could come into play with efficiency on the battery.
Also, I want to encourage any of our viewers, if you're watching live now, we are monitoring the comments thread, so if you have any questions, feel free to enter them there.
Okay, next is, I am an existing customer who recently purchased a Tesla car. Since then, my bill has gone up. Would a Powerwall help to alleviate using grid power? Not necessarily. Again, when you think about what our rate structure is, especially with PSEG, you know, we're on a net meter. So when you think about a net meter, you're using energy during the day from your solar. Whatever's excess is going into the bank, basically, that net meter. And then you're pulling from that net meter at night. Using a battery, all you're doing is moving when you're discharging and backfeeding that meter. So if you're discharging your battery at night to try to save yourself some money, especially for this Tesla car, it's really not going to make a difference to you. It's just all you're doing is moving when you're discharging and backfeeding that meter. So again, in the future, possibly, if they do some sort of time use, maybe you can see some benefit to that. Also, you might be able to program your EV charger to only charge during off-peak times. That would certainly be a big savings to you if you were to do that, as opposed to leaving it charging, you know, during, you know, the highest demand period. The one cool thing about the Tesla app, if you already have a car, it's going to update and it's actually going to show now your Tesla car, and then it's also going to show the battery. So, let's see. Can SUNation install a battery for me if I have a lease system or a PPA from a different company? Yes, we can do that. It's going to be a little bit of legwork from you. Basically, what I would need from you, the customer, is your original agreement with whoever it was, Solar City, Vivint, Sunrun. There's going to be a section in there where it talks about modifications. Basically, it's going to ask you to reach out to that company and give them a scope of work for what we're proposing to do. And then they just have to give you a letter saying that's okay. If you were to not do that, you start to run into some potential legal issues. And then sometimes they could actually take our equipment and call it theirs. So definitely want to make sure you know, that you do all that. So and again, the last question, mounting options, I think we've covered that enough.
Sure, yeah.
Again, it's you're either stacking them or putting them on the wall one at a time. So I think that's pretty much it for our basic questions, and Phil's got a couple questions from some of our customers.
Yep, so John Fiend asks, do I have to have it installed or just purchased to get the credit before rebates expire?
Okay, so he's referencing the staged reduction in rebates.
Okay. I think that one I'm not too sure. I would actually have to ask my permitting team on that one. I'm gonna put a dog ear on that one.
Yeah.
I think you're probably gonna have to have proof of installation to get that, but I can't say with any certainty.
Yeah, but definitely, you know, leave your contact information with Phil, and we can follow up on that.
Okay.
Do we have another question, Phil?
Let's see.
Yeah, while we're waiting for the next question, I just encourage anybody who's interested to reach out to SUNation. We'll share that number with you. You can go to www.sunnation.com /Tesla Powerwall -info. I can hold that up here. Probably a little easier to read that. Okay, we'll leave this in the comments as well. You can go ahead and get Powerwall information from here. You can also email us at marketing@sunnation.com for questions related to the Powerwall or solar. And as I mentioned earlier, due to the conditions of what's going on right now, especially on Long Island, given the hurricane that just passed through, as well as the pandemic, interest is at an all-time high in energy storage systems. So there may be a little bit of time before we get back to you, but we assure you that we are going to get back to everybody. Just, try to give us a little bit of time to work through the enormous volume of interest that we have right now.
Okay. What do you got, Phil?
So it looks like we've answered all of the customers' questions on live, but I know some other additional questions that people tend to ask.
Sure.
When the Tesla Powerwall is set up, what kind of devices can you expect it to run in your home? Your stove, if it's electric, air conditioning, people want to know if these things are able to be covered.
Yeah, so I can take that one. Any single phase appliance, theoretically, with a properly sized system, could be powered by the Powerwall. And what I'm talking about there, single phase versus three phase. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then it probably doesn't apply to you. Three phase being like heavy duty machinery that you'd find in an industrial setting, is not really the scale that we're looking at for the Powerwall. But anything you'd find in a home, an electric oven, a pool pump, any heavy load can be powered by the appropriately sized Powerwall system, given some modifications and considerations.
Yeah, a popular one that you're gonna see when he's referring to like a heavy load, air conditioning. I love air conditioning. If I'm getting a Powerwall, I want my air conditioning backed up. Unfortunately, to do that, you're gonna probably need that 2 Powerwalls, especially if you're trying to run a central air conditioning system. The reason being is the compressor that runs that system has a very high amperage to start. So what we end up doing is we install basically a capacitor to kind of mitigate that. So that's what Mike's referring to when he's talking about modifying and kind of retrofitting some stuff in to make it work. So we can certainly back up a lot of things. It just sometimes we have to get a little creative. And again, that is really what comes down to changes in the final price. So again, if you really want to nail down a price, get a site evaluation, let us take a look, and then we can size the system based on what you want.
Yeah, and it's good to, for the sake of your time and getting answers back faster, if you go into the site evaluation process with a list of goals, kind of having thought about, what you want to do with the battery system beforehand, that can help us give you an answer a little bit faster. So definitely consider the things we're talking about here today.
So it looks like we have time for one more question.
Sure.
Gene Donaldson asks, would I need new permits for the wall if I got permits for the panels in 2019?
Yes, you would. Yeah, the battery installation is going to be a separate permit application. It does depend from township to township. There are some differences there. I think we did have an installation where we put solar on the house earlier this year, and that particular township is allowing us to add the battery as a, like an add-on to that existing permit with some revisions. But that's going to vary from town to town. So definitely that would be a question you'd want to direct at us. We could look a little bit more into your situation a little more closely and advise you from there for sure. So I think that's about it, all the time we have for today.
Just, because I know there was probably a couple people that came in and out real quick. Just again, pricing. I know people are going to be asking if you want to start with one single Powerwall. You're usually looking at around $9,000, and again, that's after your federal tax credit. That's after your NYSERDA rebate and all the other incentives that are available. 2 batteries, you're looking somewhere in the neighborhood of around $13,700. So, additionally, there is financing options. There are, cash deals and stuff like that. So, we are pretty flexible, with how you can pay for this and how you can finance it. So,
All right.
Phil, you got any more?
I think that's it, and we're just about out of time.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Well-
Thank you everybody for joining us tonight.
Yep, I appreciate everyone logging in. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to email us. And then again, the website here for the Tesla Powerwall information, www.sunnation.com/Tesla Powerwall-info. And I'm going to put that up again for you.